It's voting day. Oh, did you think I was done with the Guardians hiring their manager? We'll talk about all that and a wild day of managerial news that turned into a WWE storyline.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show today. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. I also want to thank some of our everydayers like Stephen K out there for being very positive in the comments. We have so much to talk about. They added a manager. They added a catcher. Let's all have a moment of silence for Cam Gallagher. Goodbye,
all right,
Prince.
That was long enough moment. That was a longer moment than the amount of hits he had this year.
A lot of people are like, hey, Stephen Vogt out hit him. It's like everyone out hit him. Let's be honest.
Stephen Vogt for backup catcher.
Yeah, I mean, he's
third string catcher now. Fourth string catcher now, maybe. Yeah, quite the day. I'm really just glad, honestly. Like, was your first thought when you finally got the news that the Guardians hired Stephen Vogt was, thank God.
Was a text from you?
Well, my first thought was, not that I don't mind, we've talked about this ad nauseum since the season ended, right? That's all we've been talking about. But my first thing was, thank God we can finally talk about something else. Like, I have no problem talking about this. It's obviously a huge decision, but it's like, this is all we've been talking about for 6 weeks now. Like, I'm ready for some new topics. Obviously, we get to control what we talk about here, but this was the biggest thing on, the next item on the Guardians checklist before this offseason really started. So I'm just glad we could dive into this and then finally start to move on to juicier stuff.
And it does feel like, in fairness, that like he was the dude for them. Like, he was their guy. And then Craig Counsell came available and it made him kind of be like, And, of course, I don't know if they were contacted, if they saw the writing on the wall, but when it became obvious that Counsell was going elsewhere today, you saw the avalanche. I mean, I sat there and talked in our comments. So I want to call out two things real quickly. That's just fun from yesterday's show. If you missed it, go check it out. I forgot to click some of the correct links, so it didn't show up right away. But one, I talked about Christian Bethancourt and how Guardians should consider him after he was let go. And then I talked about that there is right now with Mendoza and Vogt being the top two candidates, and Carlos Mendoza, we're not sure if he exists because like not even Locked On Yankees really knows who this guy is. But the idea is that he seemed to be the Mets number 2. So very quickly, things could spiral for Cleveland if they were not set up to go. Now I talked about, in fairness, if Counsell went back to Milwaukee, Mendoza I thought would go to the Mets and Cleveland would have with Vogt. But the things get crazier. I didn't expect Craig Counsell, who wanted to raise the floors of all managers by getting one canned. This is a very, very weird day. I've lived in Milwaukee the last 5 years. My apartment was in walking distance my first 2 years from Craig Counsell Fields, a little league field. There is a lot. People here are livid. Like, I think I texted you, this is like his LeBron James moment where he went from folk hero to villain because, like, not only did they miss out, like, everyone I know in Milwaukee wanted Vogt if Counsell left, and because of the way this timed out, Milwaukee ends up, it's them and the Angels and the Astros left standing right now.
Padres too.
Oh, I keep forgetting about the Padres. It's easy to forget about
the team with 5 superstars that couldn't win.
It's just like they're probably going to be internal. That's why it's like, I mean, the Astros probably will be internal as well, if we're being honest. But the Angels are honestly the team I often also forget in this situation because that's just going to be
because they haven't interviewed anybody from everybody else is interviewing the same
Showalter.
Yeah, which whatever. There was rumors of them like going for Tim Salmon and Darren Erstad. I'm like, that just seems like a way to.
Because no one wants that job. What self-respecting candidate wants that job?
Yeah. Well, Stephen Vogt wanted this job, and I don't know. I think I don't know. I had said all along that Counsell was number 1, and we can debate whether or not like Counsell ended up getting $8 million. And I think Craig Counsell is a great coaching candidate and probably a good manager candidate, and it probably is a good manager. It's worth debating whether or not 8.5 or whatever it is, $8 million that he's getting is worth it. And for a guy who's This is his only manager job was Milwaukee, right? He didn't win anything. Like Tito didn't make that much money, and it probably stands the reason that managers' salaries needed to go up in baseball. They were not in line with other sports. Only hockey manager. I was looking at the graphic. I forget who put it out there. If it was Jeff Passan or if it was
there's a few people who
John
pulled that
Morosi.
out.
Yeah, so
Passan
only
had
hockey,
it for sure, but I know other people had it as well.
Yeah, so only hockey managers right now, or hockey coaches, are making less than baseball managers. So probably stood to reason that it was time for the floor to raise a little bit, and that's what Counsell wanted to do, and good for him. I mean, I'm all for guys getting paid their money and getting what they're worth. I mean, make the billionaires spend their money. Come on, that's what this is about. These guys are billionaires and they own these teams. Spend the money. The Ricketts have certainly done worse things with their money. That's debatable, but is it really? Like I said, we can have the debate whether or not Craig Counsell is he? I mean, the money's fine, but is he actually?
I don't think he's
worth being paid the most money out of anybody in baseball. That's up for debate. I mean, I could say maybe, but I don't know if I'm feeling that way. Either way, vote for Vogt, but he was 2A or 2B with Clayton McCullough.
McCullough's the guy I wanted. I'll be honest.
I like them both. I do like a lot of things in Vogt's background. I mean, this is essentially, I guess from the beginning, I feel like this is trying to find Kevin Cash part 2, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, Kevin Cash is, look, I know you've said about experience before. Kevin Cash had 2 years as Cleveland's bullpen coach. Is that one extra year really a big difference? He took a year. Cash retired. He became the Blue Jays advanced scout for a year. Then he came to Cleveland and he was their bullpen coach for 2 years. And now he is, arguably one of those guys who maybe should be getting paid among the top managers in Major League Baseball, along with Counsell, I would argue. Yeah, so you're trying to find Cash part 2. And I think that, Vogt does seem a lot like Cash. There are a lot of very Tito-like qualities here. And, he's going to get the honeymoon period. We're going to feel good about it. There's good stories. There's feel-good stories. We're all going to feel good about it. It's all going to matter when it happens on the field and how things go. And we're all going to feel really good about things initially. But, there are some good qualities here to at least be hopeful about with Cleveland going in this direction.
Yeah, 2 quick points for me. One, I think Counsell's a perfectly fine manager. I know people, like I said, here in Milwaukee, we're pretty happy with him, though there is a subcurrent who's like he can't win anything in the postseason. But I don't think he's a top 3 manager in this sport. He's good, but for him to reset, and for people who are mad, I saw people complaining, Dolan's cheap. But let's be honest, it didn't matter if Cleveland offered the same contract at $8 million a year to reset the market. He wasn't going to come here in that situation because proximity also mattered. For those who don't know, Chicago, on a good day, you can get 40 minutes from Milwaukee to Chicago. And who knows what he'll have access to. Maybe they're going to have a private helicopter taking him back and forth. Who knows what are in the riders in that contract. Minutes. It'll take even shorter. But if all things are even and proximity seemed to matter as much as it did, then Cleveland would have had to have gone to 8.5 or 9. And that just wasn't going to happen. So then you had to pivot. And I talked about yesterday, Carlos Mendoza is a weird candidate just from the perspective he's been around forever and there's nothing on him. I talked about lockdown Yankees, don't know what he sounds like, could not pick him out of a lineup. He has just been a background guy. So I preferred Vogt.
All our coaches out of lineup, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's I preferred Vogt. He is just a guy who we know he has spent time in the analytics. Towards the end of his career, specifically, he treated baseball like an internship. And he was with Bruce Bochy, Bob Melvin, and Craig Counsell. Before that, there were other big names. I know Melissa Lockhart responded to my tweet with some other coaches, big name, successful coaches that he spent time with. And this was something he knew he was going to want to do, something he knew was going to be his goal. And he treated it like it was a job. And he didn't just play, but he also worked on becoming in a situation where he could be successful. And talked about in the now, but this is a holistic hire. This isn't just getting a manager. This is getting a manager where they're probably going to work as a team, front office and coach with the coaching staff. This isn't just, Stephen Vogt's going to bring in the guys he knows. He doesn't really know a ton. He doesn't know a ton of coaches. This is probably going to be more of, what's here, and maybe there'll be a few people he brings in. Cleveland did let go 3 coaches, so they do have room to bring in some coaches. But this is going to be a holistic top-down approach, which, again, for as much as people get mad about, the front office not doing things one way or Tito not doing things the other, that was a holistic approach the whole time he was here.
Exactly. Yep, it'll be the same way there. There's going to be a lot of collaboration, and there is expected to be a certain level of continuity from the previous regime too. So I mean, this is, and that's why I kept saying, that's why manager wasn't at the top of my top priorities list. Yes, it had to get done and it's important, but also the Guardians, who you name as a manager isn't going to have much as impact as what you put on the team, what you put on the field, and how you develop players. That's what's going to make a difference here, who you're giving him to pencil into a lineup every day. That's why I said it wasn't the most important thing. What is the most important thing is we got more on Stephen Vogt coming up, and I think we both agree the Guardians made a sneaky good ad today. We're both kind of excited about this. We're nerdy and weird to get excited about, but I think we both are. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. Before we talk about the Guardians' sneaky ad, you could add some sneaky dollars to your wallet on FanDuel. Score early this season, NFL season, with FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. New customers right now, you can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. $150, all yours if your team wins that moneyline bet. So if you think about joining FanDuel, this is the perfect time to get in on the action. AFC North showdown this weekend. Browns, Ravens. Browns defense looking pretty darn good. The offense did pretty good against the pretty bad team last week.
The worst team in football?
Yeah, the worst team in football. So I don't think that's going to impact the spread of the game. But the good thing for you is you're betting on the money line probably. So Browns might be a decent pick. We'll see how the defense holds up on Sunday. The FanDuel app is easy to use, wide range of betting options. So if you don't like spreads, again, you want to do the money line bet for this $150, player props, over-unders, and a lot more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockdown to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Jeff, remember when this was part of the show? We would tell people to listen to SiriusXM for upcoming baseball content. Now, I don't know if they're on site at the GM meetings that are going on this week. Maybe they will be, maybe not. But I know they'll be around during the winter meetings. You can listen to all that. Guardians will introduce Stephen Vogt on Friday at a press conference. We'll see how that goes. I don't want to say Vogt was their plan B. I think Craig Counsell seemed like a lot of people's plan A, right? That's why this whole decision matrix got put on hold for a little bit for a lot of teams. The Mets were expected to be involved. He didn't go to that's what's wild with this whole, like I said today, this is like a WWE storyline. We thought for sure, it's probably 90% the Mets, 10% or 5% Cleveland, 5% Milwaukee, or maybe 80% Mets, 10%, 15% Milwaukee, 5% Cleveland. Then he goes to the Cubs for the most money a manager's ever been paid. I like that all the reporting that led up to this, said that it was Mets, or it was Brewers matching the Mets, or it was Brewers matching the Guardians, and he goes to the Cubs. And nobody even really knew. The fun part about it was that the Cubs couldn't even talk to him until November 1st when his contract expired, because they didn't ask for permission to talk to him, because they probably knew that the Brewers would have said, no, you're not talking to our manager in the same division. So this all happened in the last 5 days. So I know there was a lot of people talking about leverage, and I'm sure Counsell and his agent played their cards right, because his goal was to reset the manager pay scale. And like I said, credit to him, get paid. That's fine. If that's your goal, he did it. And these billionaire owners are spending a lot worse money. But this all happened at a very weird pace. And, Jeff Passan, what was it, 2 weeks ago, tweeted about how the Guardians were interested in Stephen Vogt. And normally when Jeff Passan tweets something, to me, that's almost gospel. So maybe we should have seen it before, but it speaks to everybody putting their plans on hold to talk to Counsell. But like you said, if they figured out that Counsell was not going to be making his decision to come to Cleveland or wherever else, it was time to make their other move. And like I said, I don't want to say Vogt was plan B, but maybe it was this is our Hail Mary for Craig Counsell, and if it doesn't work, then we've got a good option to fall back on. But I think they really did like Stephen Vogt. I think they were just trying to see how much it was going to take to get Craig Counsell here. But I don't know. Does it feel weird that
due diligence, right?
Yeah. I mean, is it going to feel like Vogt was the plan B? Because I don't think that's the case at all, but I feel like that's how it's going to come off to some people, especially when you got commenters saying like, oh, they're, Counsell's getting $8 million and the Guardians are probably paying, whatever, $3 million for 3 years. Like, I don't think that's the case at all. Like I've had people reach out to me saying like, oh, Vogt was not a good player, or,
he was a multi-time all-star.
Yeah, that doesn't even matter whether you're an all-star or not. I mean, we've talked about in the show how Eddie Murray was a god-awful hitting coach, and Barry Bonds was not well liked as a hitting coach. And then, like, even Dusty Baker won a World Series last year. I think he made $1.5 million. Two things that really don't matter when it comes to managerial aspects is how much they get paid and what their baseball card stats are. Those two things are absolutely irrelevant because look who's won.
Who want to rage. Like people who are already mad who want a reason to rage. Like that's what this is. It's like you're looking for every reason to be mad. And there are those people who just constantly look for every reason to be mad that this team can do nothing right. And it just like that's what this felt like to me to some degree. It's like, I understand if there's frustration and I understand the concern with lack of experience, but don't come with the weak, like how he played or this. It's not about or cheapness. Money. Like we know it's not about cheapness because Terry, it was up and down, but eventually was confirmed was the highest paid manager in baseball last year.
Mm-hmm.
So
they were willing to spend money on a manager. And I would argue that, for all of his shortcomings, Tito was probably worth it for the culture he built here. And I mean, God, go back to the Manny Acta era. Like things were terrible here. There was not a lot of hope after that mid 2000s run flamed out. Like it was pretty horrible. So they turned things around with that. I think they're better at their processes. They're a lot smarter. And also people were saying like, oh, that Craig Counsell played them. I don't think Craig Counsell played them either because Mike Chernoff went to Princeton and Chris Anthony went to Georgetown. Like these are smart people. I think they're smart enough to know whether they're getting played or not. Like they played the same games everybody else plays. I'm pretty sure they had an idea what was going on. And like you said, they were doing their due diligence. But do you think it's going to come off that they got their plan B? I feel like there are some people who are going to think that, but I don't think that was the case at all. I think it really was due diligence by Cleveland. And, you had to go out there and see what was available to you.
No, I agree. I think it is. They did the due diligence. They took the chance when the opportunity presented itself. And again, like, yes, do I think Counsell's a top 3 manager? No, but is he probably top 7? Yes. And there was not a lot of guys that are proven top 7 guys. They took their shot and they didn't end up on top, and that's fine. But they took a shot and they took advantage of that opportunity. And they knew they liked Vogt. And it's very clear from the interviews that he was the player who stood out to them. And, or I should say manager. But at the end of the day, when they became clear they weren't going to get Counsell, they quickly pivoted to their guy. And they got a guy that they still really believed in and liked. Like, it's not like all of a sudden we come back from this and it's like this was a guy that they were not, a fan of, or that this is a secondary fallback. This is a guy they liked.
And he was well sought after too, because like you said, if they didn't go and make the move once they realized that Counsell wasn't going to happen, somebody else would have grabbed him. And Milwaukee wanted Vogt. It's possible that San Diego might have reached out to him. Houston needs a manager. I don't know what direction they're going in, but it wasn't like nobody wanted Stephen Vogt. Again, like look at the Angels. I know we just saw like Buck Showalter was kind of a rumor today, but like all I've seen them connected to was Tim Salmon and Darren Erstad. Like that to me just screams of like, okay, we're trying to bring back some popular player. Like they'd be like Jim Thome or Sandy Alomar managing here. Like that's what everybody wanted was Alomar, but that just feels like more of a PR move than anything, especially after Alomar, said he didn't want the job. I like Vogt. At the end of the day, I mean, I don't think we really know how much this is going to make a difference because, like you said, it's a holistic approach. And to me, as we've talked about this whole search, can you get your employees, your players, like this is anything in life, like any job. Can you get the people working for you to buy into what you're saying and what you want to do and how you want to do it? and who they keep on the coaching staff or who they bring in and player development, all that matters here. So it's not just incumbent on one guy. Like, yeah, he's the guy who everyone's going to look to when things get tough, and he's got to push the buttons and make the decisions. But he's going to take information from the front office. He's going to take information from his coaches and player development and advanced scouting, all this stuff. And yeah, he's the one who has to process all the information and make the decision at the end of the day. But, it's not like it's incumbent on him alone to do all this stuff. And he's, got to work with the players. He's also got, like I said, I like Vogt for being an everyman. And it sounds like there are a lot of players out there. I mean, Chris Bassett, Akron Zip, Ernie Clement, former Guardian. There's a bunch of former players out there I saw today.
Dallas Braden.
Yeah, Dallas Braden. There's a lot of people out there on the industry that really like Stephen Vogt. We'll see if that matters at the end of the day, but he seems very relatable. He has a lot of respect from a lot of people. And again, I like the element of the role he was in Seattle. He had to take, he had to work with catchers or the pitchers in the bullpen. Bullpen coach is something that does matter. We saw, Kevin Cash move on from that role to Tampa Bay. And then you're taking a level of analytics and information and advanced scouting, and you're trying to help, your coaches and players digest that. So there's an element of that involved there. But, at the end of the day, we'll see if any of that really matters. I mean, I don't think I'm smart enough to figure that out. And hopefully Chris Anthony and Mike Chernoff are.
Yeah, we, speaking of smart people and moves, I think we've discussed why we both think this is a solid hire, and
I'm excited.
Hyperbole out there was a mess. But I think we take our next break, come back, and talk about why Christian Bethancourt is going to get buried, but should not at all on today's Locked On Guardians.
This is the most exciting, non-winter meetings, non-trade move I think we could have seen. I wonder if we're looking at this from the perspective, you always talk about how we look at the Guardians' lack of power and how we judge who they should add or who they shouldn't add because the Guardians have such a lack of power. So like we're clouded by that when we look at players maybe. And the backup catcher role might be kind of the same way because the Guardians catching and Guardians backup catching have been a disaster. It's been a garbage fire. Let's be honest. It's bad. So
at the Christian best of times, it was a garbage fire.
Yeah, Christian Bethancourt comes in looking like not a diamond in the rough. He looks like he actually is a physical diamond compared to everything else. Like I don't want to steal your thunder, but real quickly, Cam Gallagher's gone. He is off the 40-man, like you said. But
everyone out there is just feeling so sad about this.
It'll be great when Cam Gallagher is a future Guardians coach, I'm sure. But tell everybody how far of a difference this is in terms of offense, like weighted runs created plus, because you pointed this out, like what this is going from.
So again, he was one of like a historically bad hitter. Christian Bethancourt was let go. Listen, he's going to make 2.3, but in his bad year, he had a 74 weighted runs created plus. For those who don't know, this is a stat that sits there and balances all the parts and pieces and says compared to a league average hitter, he was about 25% below league average. We would have killed for that for how long now? With Hedgie, with Zunino, with everyone not counting Bo Naylor over the last 3 to 4 years, this is what we lacked. He's an improvement in his down year. You go back to the year when they got him from Oakland. He was over in the KBO before that, and in Oakland, he was a good enough player that they traded 2 prospects to get him. Tampa is up against it in terms of their 40-man, even more than Cleveland, and there's some monetary savings. So he's going to cost Cleveland probably about $2.3 million, but he also then opens up Fry and Bettancourt to do more. He is not a great person when it comes to blocking the plate. Nothing can be worse than Zunino a year ago, right? Nothing's going to get to that level. But he's actually really good at throwing out runners. Like he is great pop times, great arm. So there's a benefit there. Framing metrics aren't great, but he is an offensive upgrade, especially as a backup. Like I said, he would have been an offensive upgrade over most of the catchers we've had out there. Right-handed bat, a little bit of pop, not a ton, but maybe about average-ish. Solid defender. And then again, Naylor can spend some days at DH and still get him in. Fry can move around and always play against lefties. It makes your roster better. He's a solid backup catcher and one who you don't like going from a negative value to him. It's almost like you're moving to a league average player just by replacing Cam Gallagher with Bethancourt, and that's in his down year. Maybe he rebounds, maybe he doesn't. He's 32 years of age, but we'll have to see.
What do we all? I love when you roster bait, by the way. Love roster baiting.
Yes.
What do we always talk about? We always talk about going from F's to C's, and this is Cam Gallagher was, again, no disrespect to the man Cam Gallagher, but to the player Cam Gallagher, was an F minus, was an H for help us. This is literally an F to a C, and it's an F to a C on just talent level alone on field. I mean, he does have the Oscar Gonzalez offensive profile. Like, he strikes out a fair amount. He walks very intermittently, almost never, and he's got power. That's fine. That's what you want. Like, this is what you wanted out of Austin Hedges, right? You wanted good defense, and you wanted a guy to hit the ball over the wall a couple of times a year as a backup catcher. Hedges just, at one time, he was that guy in San Diego. Like, he hit some home runs. He was a good defender, and he did some other things offensively, and it just cratered even worse. And maybe Bethancourt will crater. Like, we don't know. Like, it's possible Bethancourt will crater. It will get worse. Like, maybe that's why Tampa Bay was like, letting him go. How often does Cleveland lose moves with Tampa Bay? Like, I know they're picking him up for nothing except for money, so it's fine. But, there's definitely a chance that Bethancourt has reached his peak, and he is going to be worse next year. I think defensively he'll still have something to offer. We'll see offensively, but if you get the guy that Tampa Bay got last year for $2.5 million or $2.3 million, and maybe you can before you get to arbitration, maybe you settle at $2 million. I'm okay with paying him $2 million because of the defense and being able to throw out runners. And like you said, it's not just Bethancourt, the talent alone. It's what he does for your roster. It's Bo Naylor maybe DHing, and you can do that because you might carry David Fry, and you can also throw David Fry at first base against a lefty or right field, or you can DH him against a lefty and sit Bo Naylor for a day and play platoon matchups. I don't think Bethancourt is like super good at hitting righties over lefties. I think he's pretty even for the most part. He's had some up and down years versus lefties, but I think for the most part he's been, it didn't really matter.
For his career now, his career is broken up by when he went to Japan or Korea and came back. He is definitely much better against lefties than righties, like 82 versus 68.
Yeah, I mean, you're still below league average, but yeah, 62 to 80, I guess.
But again, he is a different player since he came back from his time in the KBO. Like, those early years, his highest runs created plus was a 68. The last 2 years have been a 100 and a 74. So it's also probably one of those things where I should look at the split specifically for the last 2 years.
And this is one of the things I argued about when we talked about why I said, I don't think manager is like the most important thing the Guardians have to do this offseason, even though it's important. I wanted to upgrade backup catcher, and you talked about Bethancourt on Monday's show, and I think Bethancourt is a very possibly good addition as a backup catcher, but it'd be great if the Guardians finally could utilize their entire 26-man roster. Like, it's been a couple of years now where I feel like I said earlier, I think since 2013, they just have not been a team that takes advantage of their entire roster, because you've had Michael Martinez's and Mike Freeman's and whatever. And Mike Freeman did have that one randomly good year, so give him credit for that. But they've just never used their full roster, and you're not using your bench players. And some of that was because, okay, you've got Ramirez and you've got Jose and you had Santana and you had Lindor, and those guys play every day, and Kipnis and Hernandez for a while. Like, those guys play every day. I get that. But if you're not a team that's got stars cemented on every position, make your roster flexible, deepen the bench, and Bethancourt deepens the bench because it allows you to utilize Naylor differently. It allows you to utilize Fry differently, and take advantage of the full roster. I feel like that this is something that could help them with that. It's like I said, is it a move that's going to make a lot of headlines? No, but it has potential to really be beneficial to this team, and I think it's worth at least being optimistic. I'm not saying you got to go out and throw a parade and act like the Guardians are going to win the World Series now. But it's a move to be optimistic about, because it does give them some flexibility, and it's a heck of an upgrade over what you've been seeing coming off the bench behind whoever's starting catcher the last several years.
And his splits have been a lot more even the last 2 years. It was like 75 and 73. And then the other one was like 103 and 98. So just to give you that, baseline. And again, 70 is not great, but 70s are better than what you got from anyone in the outfield not named Stephen Kwan a year ago. That's just the truth of the matter. It's it's what we talked about earlier. It's the small improvements across the board. And we have appreciated the small improvements across the board in our people watching. Thank you all for joining in. We're going to have a lot more fun. Everything is going to be covered by us this offseason. The smallest move, it doesn't matter. We got you covered. So remember to tune in, rate and review daily. Download it helps. Be an everydayer, and go Guardians go.